Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adobe Live. We are here on day 2 with Aaron Nace. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Anna McNaught, and I will be your host today. I am joined by Aaron Nace, also the founder of Phlearn. I'm sure you all know who he is. Welcome, Aaron. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. I'm so excited today. We are going to be doing a bunch of really cool examples for practical compositing in Photoshop. It's going to be so much fun.
That's awesome. That's going to be very useful. I know we can all benefit from that when we have client work or just looking at your examples. Very good for those of us who run an Etsy shop. This is going to be super useful, especially now with the holidays coming up. So welcome everyone into the chat. I see Ferry and Sam and Cody and Matthew. Thank you for being here with us today. It is such a beautiful day here in the studio, in my studio, in Aaron's studio, wherever you are all chatting in from. Say hello and pop on over to ask Aaron some questions. Be sure if you are on YouTube to come over to Behance so that you can join in on the conversation. So without further ado, Aaron, let's jump right into it.
Let's get in. I'm super excited. So we're starting off here with our very first example in Photoshop. And this is something that I feel like we've all had to deal with before. We've got our base image here on the right. We've got some artwork here. And I want to swap this artwork out on the wall. So this can be done with any type of like object replacement in a photograph. We're going to do things really cool. We're going to show you how to color match. We're going to show you how to completely recreate these shadows. Let's just make this a little bit bigger. Recreate shadows to make everything look super realistic. And we're going to show you how to use a great smart object workflow that's going to allow us to dynamically change the art out really quickly and seamlessly. So we can decide, like, let's say this was your living room and you were trying to decide like, okay, cool, I want to put some new art on my walls. What might look good in this place? So you can take a picture of your living room, do this in just a few minutes in Photoshop, and then get a good idea of like what something actually might you look for space. So I'm super excited. Let's get into it. We've got a bunch of examples, by the way, today. So this is just getting us started. Alrighty. So the first thing I want to do is basically create a new document. Now I want to put just like one square piece of artwork on that background. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new document. We're just going to make it like, let's go 4,000 by 4,000 pixels. Hit OK there. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and just save this out. So Shift Command S, we're going to save this out and we're just going to call this wall art. There we go. Fantastic. And I'm going to start by just dragging. I have a few different pieces of art here. This one, we're just going to click and drag right on there. And then this one as well. So let's hit F for full screen. And I'm just going to scale these up a little bit. Control or Command T. We're just going to scale this up. I want it to fit the entire frame. There we go. And then I'm going to make a couple of copies of this one because we want to make sure. Let's scale those all at the same time. Boom, 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 boom. Because it's really kind of crazy. Like different artwork just works better in different spaces. And, you know, you don't want to buy something and then get it home and then be like, ooh, you know what? This actually doesn't work. I should have chose a purple painting instead of a red painting. So let's go ahead and start with this. So we've got this document saved, this wallart.psd. So now I'm going to go back to my main image here. I'm going to go to File. We're going to go down to Place Linked. And I'm going to place this document right into my wall art. There we go. Hit Enter. And there you can see it's placed into the document. Now, this is a linked smart object. I'm going to hit Control or Command T. We're just going to shrink this down a little bit. Perfect. And I want to get this on the wall looking good. So a few things we got to do first. I need to remove all the stuff that's already on the wall. So to do that, we're just going to create a new layer. Okay. Now there is a lot of different ways that you can remove this stuff. We're going to just try the object removal. So I'm going to do a lasso tool right around this wall art. We're going to go to Edit, and I'm going to go to Content Aware Fill. And this usually does a great job just doing everything like pretty automatically. Here you can see the preview on the right-hand side. Oh, did Photoshop just crash?
Uh-oh.
There we go. Sometimes Photoshop crashes. Let's open that back up. Thankfully, we already saved that PSD, so we're good to go. Recovered. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, let's get back. Let's get back to it. All right, there we go. Cool. So let's go ahead and cut those out. Yep, don't send it. No. All right. That's actually the first time I've had that crash Photoshop for me. There we go. We're just going to say, okay, that looks good. Okay. And then down here, we're going to say, okay, again. So as you can see, it did a pretty good job replacing all of those paintings. Not perfect. So what I would recommend doing is create a new layer on top of that and just go with the regular healing brush tool. I'm going to hold Alt or Option to sample this texture that's really nice and smooth. And then we're just going to paint over this area where it just kind of created a little bit more of a complicated texture than what we want. There we go. Just to kind of clean everything up again. Perfect. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and place that object again. So File, down to Place Linked. There we go. And we already saved that out, so we're looking good. Go, wallart.psd. Let's go ahead and place that. And hit Enter. Perfect. Now I just need to scale this down a little bit. Perfect. Okay, so I want to go ahead and open up my wallart.psd. Let's open this up because we're going to be able to dynamically work on this and edit it and have it update inside of our other document, which is going to be super, super helpful. Let's go ahead and place an embedded. I want to just place this original image back here as well so I can see what it looks like with the perspective. Okay, cool, cool. So all that was kind of like set up a little bit of like the, technical stuff. Now we're getting into the more artistic stuff, which is going to be a lot of fun. Cool. So the first thing, plus a little bit of a little workaround there with the crash, but we're good. So the first thing that I want to do is get this piece of wall art in about the same perspective as the original wall art that's on the wall. So we're just going to lower the opacity and bring it up into place. And I'm going to hit Control or Command T for our transform. Now, in this case, what I can do is hold Control or Command, and I can actually grab any one of these points and start bringing it wherever I want. And in this case, we're just going to bring this up a little bit and then bring this side down a little bit too, because I can see through this, through the image here, I can actually see the original piece of art that's on the wall. And I can see this line that's on the original art. And that's going to inform the perspective of this piece. So if I just kind of copy what was there originally, this is a really great way to duplicate perspective. You don't have to have something on the wall to be able to do this, by the way. There are a number of filters like the vanishing point filter that you can use. But this is just like a general, like pretty easy way to do that. So let's go ahead and hit Enter there. Fantastic. And we're going to make that invisible. And let's go ahead and save this out just in case. Right. Perfect. And we'll bring that back up to 100%. All right. So what we have now is a piece of art. Hopefully it's in pretty much the right perspective. If it's not, you can always go ahead and hit Control or Command T and just change that perspective at any time. Let's pull that out just a little bit there. Perfect. And now what we want to do, this is the reason why we created this smart object. So let's check this out. Let's go ahead and save that. And then now here in our smart object, remember we took the time to kind of like change this. So if I turn one of these other layers on, there we go. Let's go ahead and zoom that out. So I'm turning these layers on. All I have to do is hit Save, Control or Command S to save this out. There we go. It's just saving. And then as you can see, it automatically updates right here on my other file. So if I hit save here, it's going to update here on the right-hand side as well. It just takes a second to do that. Go. Once it saves, we are good to go. Taking a little bit longer than normal, but there we go. You can see it popped it in. So this looks cool, but the images aren't really like color balanced really well to the original scene. So what I want to do is I'm just going to actually create like a white, a gray, and a black. So let's just make a little rectangle here. We're going to fill this with white. There we go. Let's make another rectangle, Shift Delete. We're going to go ahead and fill that with 50% gray. And then we're going to make one more and then fill that with black. So I'm going to be able to use this. There we go. We're going to be able to use this white, gray, and black now to help color balance everything that's in this scene. So I'm going to assume that this wall color is like maybe not pure white, maybe a little bit gray. So we're going to start by matching it, and we're going to use levels to do so. All right. So let's go ahead and grab our levels adjustment layer. We're going to clip that, hitting Option Command G. Okay. And then just like we learned in yesterday's class, I'm going to grab my red channel, drag that down a little bit. We're going to grab our green channel and our blue channel. There we go. And with a little bit of fine tuning adjustments, there we are, I can make it match pretty dang well with the original image. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty good. So we're bringing some of the color of the background in, and we're also adjusting the light levels. Okay, let's do the same thing with our darks. We're going to go to our red channel, bring that up just a little bit. The green channel, same thing, and then our blue channel. All right, Anna, how are we looking on our color match there?
Yeah, that's looking really, really good.
All right, cool. Thank you. So let's go ahead and just turn this off and on. So I've created this like white, gray, and black just so I could help kind of color match this into the scene. But I don't really want that white, gray, and black there permanently. That was just there like as a temporary thing to help me color match that. So now if I go back to my original document here, there we go. There we are. And let's just go back to the original document. I'm going to just turn these layers off. And now you can see as I turn these different layers and save them out, they're actually showing up in this scene and they're completely color matched as well. So as I save these out, perfect. They look a lot more realistic and they are color matched. Let's go ahead and just turn this one on. I think it's probably my favorite. All right, cool. So let's hit F for full screen, tap on this one. And we'll just turn this levels off and on. So you can see the before here, it just doesn't look that realistic. The colors don't look that great. And the after, we're looking much, much better. All right.
That's really nice.
It's so, so nice to be able to color match like this. And then just switch that art out. So if you're looking at buying art on a website or something like that, you have a few pieces you're choosing from, you can just pop them in and then switch them out just like this really quickly, and then get an idea of how they're actually going to look in your home or client mock-up work, whatever it is. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to do is make this look a little bit more realistic, because at this point, it doesn't really look that real. So we need to add some drop shadows. So let's go to our wall art here. Now, we're going to go down to our drop shadow. I'm going to go ahead and turn on our first drop shadow. And I've got some great tips for you guys on creating shadows in Photoshop. The first thing that we want to do is here, the shadow color. We want to make sure that it's generally the same shadow color as it's in our image, right? Generally, we don't want to just choose black because black produces desaturated shadows. Most of the time, shadows have some color in it. So what we're going to do is use our eyedropper here to actually choose some of the shadow color that's in this image already. So we're just going to grab some shadow color that's already on, you know, a similar wall. And as we can see, we've got like a desaturated medium dark blue. We can go a little bit darker there. All right, and we're looking good. So let's go ahead and bring that up a little bit. We're going to bring up our distance, kind of juggling a few different windows here. We're going to bring up our distance. There we go. And our size just a little bit as well. Now, when you create shadows in Photoshop, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Usually, if you just do one shadow like this, it usually doesn't look that realistic. The reason is shadows are super complex and they often involve multiple layers of shadows, especially if you have multiple light sources. So my big tip here is whenever you're recreating shadows like this for drop shadow, just do it in a few different layers. So let's go ahead and hit this plus icon. We're going to do another one of these. All right, we're going to bring our size up a little bit and we're going to bring our distance up on that as well. So you can see already we have a more complicated, more interesting shadow. Let's do another one of these. We're going to bring our distance down and our size down as well. And then this is going to be the shadow that's like directly under the piece of art. There we go. Perfect. And lower the opacity there. We'll do one more. And let's just bring our distance up just a little bit like that. Perfect. All right. So let's go ahead and just turn all those off and on. And I haven't added any three-dimensionality within the print just yet. But as you can see, if I just turn all of these off, there we go. There's before, and then we have one shadow, 2, 3, and 4. And they all add quite a bit of depth and detail to the original piece of art. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to add a bevel and emboss. Let's go ahead and turn that on. Okay. And we're going to bring up our depth here. There we go. And then our colors as well. We want to make sure they're matched to this actual image. Let's go ahead and bring these up so I can see what we're doing just a little bit better as well. All right. And as I bring my size up here, you can kind of get an idea of what we're actually doing. We can choose from different types of bevels. We can choose an emboss. We can choose a pillow emboss. All these are just going to look a little bit different, basically. All right, so we're just going to go with a standard emboss. Let's see, maybe an inner bevel. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. And we're just going to bring our softening up a little bit and our size down a little bit too. There we go. I just want something that looks a little bit more 3D, a little bit more realistic. There we go. So now we can just turn these things off and on so that bevel and emboss and all of our drop shadows, all those things we can turn off and on at any time. And we have a much more realistic piece of art. Keep in mind, if you need to, and I think I need to just adjust the perspective just a tiny bit. There we go. So let's go ahead and save this out. But here's the coolest part. Like, we've created this like relatively good looking, relatively realistic piece of art that's on the wall now. But still, I can go back to this original one and say like, okay, cool. How does this look? Like if I just change this out and pop it over here, you can see that I still have all of my drop shadows. I still have my bevel and emboss. I still have everything that made the other piece of art look good. And as I switch through these, there we go. Let's go ahead and save that out one and put that back here. As I switch through, now we have a pretty good representation of what this actually looks like in the space.
That looks so good.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, it's so simple too. And I always kind of forget to use effects like that because it really does help with the realism.
It really, really does. Yeah, it's so fun. Just a couple layer effects and it's like, oh, cool. That actually looks like it's in place. Now, I've got one more little trick for you here, and we're just going to grab a solid color fill layer. I'm going to bring my color all the way to red, and I'm going to change my blending mode from normal down to luminosity. And have you ever done this? Created a luminosity layer?
Mm-mm.
Okay, this is one of my favorite tricks. So when you change a layer from normal to luminosity, basically it makes all of the light levels in your entire image look the exact same, right? So I'm not seeing any differences between light and dark because I've kind of chosen that light level. So the only things that I'm seeing now are my different hues and my different saturations. So for instance, I've got, this orange object on the table over here. I've got, like even more of an orange pillow. I've got like this pink dresser. So I'm seeing hue, which is like red, green, blue, orange, and I'm seeing saturation. So what do we notice about all these objects in my image versus the object right here on the wall? Do you see a difference, Anna?
I guess that they're just a little bit more muted.
They're more muted, exactly. So this piece of art on the wall is really, really saturated. It's way more saturated than any of the other colors in this image. And looking at it right now, you kind of see it. It's pretty obvious. So in order for this to composite and really look good, I have to bring the saturation of this art down a little bit, and that's going to help match to the original photograph. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to just grab an adjustment layer. We're going to go to hue/saturation, make sure that's clipped. And then I'm just going to take this saturation and we're going to bring it down. And we're going to see, you know, right about there, it's starting to look a lot more like all of the other pieces in this work. So let's just turn that off and back on. So we're using that luminosity layer to kind of help us see a little bit better. And now let's just turn that color fill back on and look at how much more realistic that looks. So if I turn that hue saturation off, it really still just kind of looks like a fake image that's posted in there. But when I turn that back on, it makes a huge difference. It looks a lot.
Such a great tip.
Isn't that cool? So this is just a regular color fill layer set to luminosity. And what that's going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to compare your hue and your saturation when you're doing a composite. So anytime you're doing a composite, I highly recommend using this tip.
And should it always be red?
It doesn't actually matter what color it is.
Okay.
I just set it to bright red. So, but you can see as I go through my different colors here, it just basically chooses your luminosity point. So everything else that you're seeing is just saturation and hue. So it really doesn't matter the color. I just choose red because it's my easy go-to. Okay. And I have a few more like really cool tricks when it comes to these solid color fill layers as well. But yeah, just a fun way to kind of like analyze light and color because obviously they're very complex. So if you can have these little tools that help along the way, let's go ahead and turn this one on. We can save that out. Let's watch it pop back in there automatically. And you can see even this looks a lot more realistic. It looks like it's actually in the place because the light matches pretty well, the color matches pretty well, and we're looking a lot more realistic.
Yeah, that's crazy. So cool.
Cool. Do we have any questions from the chat about this or any type of like general compositing color matching?
Yeah, we had a question a little further back. I believe it was Matthew who asked it about having the linked object the way you did versus if you were to just create a space for it and have a smart object and change that out. Is there a reason you did the linked object?
That's a really good question. You can definitely use a smart object. So your workflow will definitely work. A lot of the reason why I use these place linked objects is because they're a little bit more versatile. Let's say you're working with a team of people and maybe other people want, let's say this was a graphic instead of a painting and the graphic was still being worked on. So as that graphic file gets updated, as long as you save it and reopen all these composites, they'll automatically link and automatically update. So it's a really good way to like work through like design changes in a team or as a group of people. But if this is a one-off project and you're just doing something like this, then a smart object is a great way to do it. And there's no downsides in that case.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's a really good pro tip with the linked object. I didn't even think to use those.
Yeah, they're so cool. They really help out, especially, you know, for these composites, because what it allows me to do is I can work on this image here in 2 dimensions, right? Full color. It's just a flat square. I can do my designs and layout and stuff like that. But all I have to do is save it, and then it automatically translates into perspective with the lighting and the color matched and everything looking good into here. And then you could place this into multiple documents if you wanted as well. So it's just a really fun workflow to test out ideas and then have them automatically composite back into other spaces.
Cool.
Cool. All right. So much fun. All right. We're moving on to our next example. All right. So our next example, we've got like a really interesting like banner we're going to be working with. And we're going to do, you know what, in this case, let's try the smart object approach. So we did the linked, place linked last time. This time we're going to do a smart object. So we're going to go ahead and hit F for full screen on this image. Let's just do a tiny bit of cleanup here. I just want to get rid of that bird. There we go. Just choose a regular brush here. Perfect. Now, what I want to do is kind of create a little bit of like a banner behind my subjects. So I want the banner to just like, you know, have some text on it and just kind of like make this into a little bit of an advertisement. I don't know. Let's say you were like on the, you know, the board of tourism for wherever this is. And you're like, let's capture some people having fun at the beach, right? So The first thing we're going to do is I want to go ahead and I'm going to use the brand new tool. And have you used this object selection tool that just got updated?
Yeah, I can't get it to work on my laptop for whatever reason, but I've used it on my other computer and it works so well. It's awesome.
Yeah, it really does work really well. All you have to do is basically like hover over objects. It finds them using select subject technology. I'm just going to click on this and then hold shift and then click on her too. And now you can see both of my subjects are selected. Like,
so great.
Amazing.
So amazing.
Total magic. Really, really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this layer and then pop that as a layer mask. So what would have taken quite a bit of time before, we're basically doing automatically. And you can see I can just move them around if I need to. I can, put another copy of them over there.
Look how well it cut out the hair too.
It's crazy. I know, like, okay, cool. Thank you so much. Saving me a lot of time.
Yeah.
So the next thing I want to do is go ahead and create my banner. And we're going to do a rectangle tool. And I'm just going to click and drag. And by the way, this can be changed at any time. And I want to just add some rounded edges to my rectangle. All right, let's go ahead and just move this right over there. And I'm going to just give this a white stroke. So let's just choose our colors. And for now, we'll just choose a little bit of a bigger stroke so we can see it. All right, fantastic. So you can see this banner is showing up behind our subjects now, right? I can move this around and there we go. Cool, behind our subjects. But I want to make it a little bit more interesting. I want to make it a little bit cooler. What we want to do is I want to take this background here and I want to give it a blur. So we're going to blur this background. It's going to make this banner kind of look like it's a piece of like frosted glass. We're still going to be able to see the background through it, but it's going to have a little bit of a blur. So we're going to go ahead and duplicate the background layer. Control or Command J to do that. Okay, I'm going to bring this up to above my rectangle, and then I'm going to clip this to the rectangle. So I only want it to be visible inside of this rectangle. Let's just go back to this rectangle here. We're going to go back to our shape tools. There we go. Open up our properties. And then here I'm going to choose my stroke. I want it to be on the outside. There we go. And we're just going to bring this opacity back up there. And then my rectangle, we're going to go ahead and give it a fill. I'm going to fill it with white as well. Perfect. Okay. So really cool setup. Basically, we have this rectangle behind our subjects, and I duplicated my background layer back over top of it. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to right click here, and we're going to convert this to a smart object, and I'm going to give it a blur. I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, and then Gausian Blur. And then we're just going to go ahead and crank up our blur. Because I made this a smart object first, I can change my Gaussian blur at any time if I want. All right, so check this out. Now I have this rectangle, but if I move it around my image, you can see a different part of my image gets blurred. How cool is that? So I love that. Let me just up the Gaussian blur so you guys can see it a little bit better on the screen. So as I move my rectangle around, I've got a really nice like blurred background effect that we could use. One slight downside that we can see here is that like my subject's hair and all that, like it doesn't look that good. And I've got a little bit of my subject's face that like, the dark outline for my subject kind of coming into that blur. So we want to get rid of that. And to do that, I'm just going to double click right here on my smart objects. And in this case, I just want to remove the people. And you don't have to do this really well because everything's going to get blurred. But if I remove my people, they're not going to be included in the general blur. So it's going to mean that this effect is just going to look way, way cleaner. All right, and I'm just grabbing the clone stamp tool. No need to get super fancy with this. Again, it's all going to be blurred quite a bit. There we go. So I just want to do a really rough job removing these people, just clone stamping them away. There we go. This is just for this effect. You guys are going to see in just a second. It's a super, super cool way to do this. We're using a bunch of different smart object assets in this example. Yeah. All right. Cool. I don't think we're going to come down this far, but just in case we do, let's go ahead and remove them. obviously if you're, doing actual object removal, you'd spend a bit more time on this and do a better job. But in this case, it's just for this like little window effect, and everything is going to get blurred pretty heavily. There we go. Okay, and that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead, and I can show you this in real time as well. So let's zoom out. Let's zoom in here. I want to be able to see everything on the screen. So remember, we have on this layer here, this is our smart object. If I hit save, Control-Command S, watch this update in real time. Did you see how it updated, Anna?
Yeah. So nice.
So basically, I removed all that little blur around these subjects, and then my Gaussian blur effect just looks a lot cleaner and a lot more usable.
So much better.
All right, cool. I just need to clean up this layer mask a tiny bit, and there we go. We're good to go. So this is just part of the effect. So I've got a bit of a blur on the background. Let's go ahead and give it a little bit more of a blur so we can actually see what we're doing. I can still move this rectangle around. So as I move this around, I've still got this like interesting magnifying glass effect. Now we're going to continue to add to this. So I'm going to create a new layer above it. We're going to go ahead and clip that. There we go. And then we're just going to grab a color and then add like a little bit of a frosted effect to it. So there we go. All right. Make it look like a little bit more standouty. I can change the properties here if I want to bring the stroke size down a little bit. Fantastic. And now what we're going to do, there we go. Let's go ahead and save that out. What we're going to do is grab our text. So let's go ahead and bring this in here. I'm going to just click and drag and move this in. There we go. Let's hit F for full screen. And here, I'm going to just hit Control-Command-I to invert that. So by inverting it, we have what was light is now dark. And I'm going to change my blend mode from normal. We're going to go down to screen. So hit Control-Command-T. Let's just go ahead and scale this up a little bit. All right, and put our little logo / graphic here. Now, I've got another cool tip here. We're going to use a, there we go, a layer mask to just mask this in. There we go. Let's just pop that on our layer mask, invert it. But now check this out, because we have a really cool setup here. This is a similar idea to what we did with the painting before, where maybe we want to test some ideas out. But in this case, they're all happen to be on the same layer. So I'm going to click on this little chain link button between my layer and my layer mask. And that's going to unlink them. They're always going to be linked by default. But if you unlink the layer and the layer mask, then you can actually move one independent of the other. So I'm going to keep my layer mask in the exact same place. And we're just going to move our layer and scroll through our different designs. So as I move this, check this out. I could just move this right over here. There we go. Let's go the other way so it all fits. There we go. And here we have our other design. Do we have another one? Nope. So I'm just scrolling through these, and we can see they automatically update in this space. So we would say, girls just want to have sun. Tropical state of mind. So if you're working...
I love that it's like cloudy and they're wearing fall clothes.
Yeah. Yes. Let's choose something that's a little bit more appropriate. Hello, summer. I need vitamin C, maybe. Everything is fine when there's sunshine. Yeah, I think all of these are inappropriate, right? So we got to go back to our graphic designer and say, you know what? We need something that involves some clouds. There we go. I like this hello summer. Let's go ahead and just expand this layer mask out a little bit. It can still be summer. Summer can have its overcast days. There we go. So we can obviously bring in whatever designs we wanted to, and those are automatically going to be clipped here in the rectangle as well. So just kind of like a fun, quick way to create a banner behind our subjects, get a little bit more interaction, and then we have, some interesting like blur effects here with the background as well.
Yeah, I love the little girl's foot going into the text too. I think it's just like a nice design element that was unintentional, where everything kind of all leads throughout the image. So really nice.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, it's those little effects that like, obviously you could just put this, like if I just group this and put it above everything, like, and like made it smaller or whatever, like obviously you could just do something like this if you wanted to, and it would look okay. But, when we can make these like little bits of interaction between like subject and background, it just kind of steps things up a little bit. And you can see like, oh, cool. This is, someone took a little bit of time and energy. And as you can see, like it wasn't hard to do, but it just kind of integrates all the elements into the photograph a little bit better. And the possibilities are totally endless for what you could do here. You could open up a levels adjustment layer here. Let's just grab a levels adjustment and clip that. And then if you wanted to like, make it quite a bit lighter and then just invert this around again and then set this to like a multiply, you could do that. Let's just change it back to screen. And then this one, let's try making it darker. There we go. I'm gonna invert that. So you can do all kinds of fun stuff really, really quickly and easily once you kind of have all these background templates and everything in place.
Nice.
Nice. Do we have any questions from the chat?
Wade said we could say, have a blast even when it's overcast.
Ooh, Wade. Nice, dude.
Good one, Wade.
Exactly. So we'll go back to our graphic designer and says, make it look like this. Just have a blast even when it's overcast.
Welcome to New Jersey.
Exactly. Yeah, this is the Jersey Shore Board of Tourism.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Fantastic. Let's move on to our next example. All right. So this is going to be cool. I want to create, how like in movies and TV shows, they have like texting examples where a person is like actively texting and you have to show it on screen, right? There's, a million ways that you can do this, but it's relatively simple here to do this in Photoshop. So we've got a stock image of a woman texting. And I just want to create like little text bubbles for her to actually work with. So yeah, what we're going to do is I'm going to start off my rectangle tool. We're just going to click and drag out to start off our little text bubble. And then I want everyone in the chat to start thinking of what we want the text messages to actually say, because that's going to be totally up to you guys in the chat. So go ahead and then Anna can pick and we'll have our little conversation going on.
Yeah, let us know what this girl is smiling about.
Yeah, what is she smiling about? Who's on the other end of this text message stream? There we go.
Also, Matthew had a question. In a day, how many hours is Aaron spending in Photoshop?
I live inside of Photoshop. Every now and then I come out to interact with the real world, but then I have to go back in. It's my safety zone. So yeah, I'm just built into the computer code at this point. Every time they update the Adobe CC, I get 1 year older. That's my program. So
I love that. That's so good. Oh, that's amazing.
Awesome. So how we're going to go ahead and take care of this. This is one of the coolest things that I actually just discovered recently. So I'm just using a shape tool, right? We're grabbing a rectangular shape tool. I'm adding like the rounded icon or the rounded corners to this, but I want to give myself like a little bit of a text bubble, the little like the speech thing that comes down. The coolest thing that I just learned is because this is a shape layer, you can actually just edit this shape layer with the pen tool and add whatever you want. So I've got a really good like background here. All I have to do is hit P for the pen tool. I'm going to hold Control or Command and click on this object and then check this out. If I want to, I can move any of these points. There we go. I can move any of these points and I've got an updated shape path. So let's just hit undo. I'm going to add a point right here. Okay. And then I'm going to hold Alt or Option and just bring this point right down here. And as you can see, my stroke stays with my, stays with the object. I'm just holding Alt or Option and clicking and dragging these points right to about there.
Wow, perfect.
Isn't that amazing? Like super quick.
Good.
super easy. And again, if I want to, I've still got my properties. I can still go back here and go back to my shape tool, and I can change my stroke color. Like if I want to give it a red stroke, we can do that as well. So I have all of my options for my shape tools still available. There we go. And I can dynamically edit this, which is super, super fun.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
I like, let's see what Cody said. Let's order pizza. And maybe she's placing a pizza order.
Ooh, let's order pizza.
Super fun.
I like that. All right. So what are we having on for the toppings of our pizza?
Yeah, Cody, let us know. What are we having on our pizza? And anyone else in the chat, what is this girl ordering? This is her late night pizza order, sending it in at 2 a.m. She's super excited. Sun is starting to come up.
Yes. Sounds like you're speaking from experience there.
Yep, definitely.
All right, so we want to do a couple more like interesting effects here, right? We've got some colors in here, but it's just looking a little bit boring just in general. So I want to change this to like a semi see-through effect. So let's go back to our fill options. Now I'm going to just grab a solid color fill layer. There we go. Let's just go to a blue. I'm going to clip that, and then we're just going to change this from a normal to a multiply. And then let's go ahead back here and just change my fill color right here. Actually, I think if I just cancel the fill, there we go. All right. Oops. Not sure what it just did there. All right, let's go ahead and make that a selection, and then we'll just use a layer mask. There we go. Fantastic. Oh, I need to give that a fill again. We're getting a little more complex. Let me just hit undo a couple times, because what I want to do is basically I want to create a, there we go. I want these speech bubbles, like I want the white outline for these, but the inside of it, I just want to be like, I want it to multiply color onto the background. So we're going to hold Control or Command to make that a selection. And then I'm going to go to a solid color fill layer, and we'll just give it like a blue color like that. Okay, so even if I turn these both off, I still have this solid color fill layer. I'm gonna change that from normal to multiply so we can see through that color. And then once I turn this on, I'm gonna go ahead and put it right above. I can take the fill and reduce it all the way back off. So we don't have any fill now, but I still have that white border right around that little speech bubble. So it's just like a little bit more interesting than, than it was. All right, we've got some like interaction between the foreground and these elements. I'm gonna just duplicate that entire thing. So let's hit Control or Command J. There we go. We're gonna move that down and hit Control or Command T. We're gonna right click and then say flip horizontal. So we gotta do both sides, right? And then the one on the top, there we go. We'll just make that like a gray color, right? There we go. We got any pizza orders coming through?
We got 2 orders for pineapple, an order for mushroom and sausage, an order for margarita.
Yes.
Everyone's hungry.
I'm hungry
or
too.
Just me. I'm starving.
I'm hungry too. We're in the same boat here.
A coffee breakfast really doesn't sustain you very long.
All right, I'm gonna just show you this cool thing with the type tool. We're gonna just click and drag to create a type box right inside of here. There we go. And this is going to make sure that I can only type within this little type box. So let's go ahead and open up our character window. All right, we're gonna go window and down to character. And we just need to start by making that a lot smaller. Let's just click that on auto. All right, so we're gonna say, what would you like on your pizza? All right, there we go. And then I can go in here and make my text a little bit bigger. And then the cool thing here is that as I make my text bigger, you can see it's going to fit inside of that box, right? Because I predefined the box, so it's going to look like it's in the speech bubble. All right, let's go ahead and change it to like a more bold font that also looks like it might be appropriate for text message fonts. Go. Just something fun here. How are we doing on time, Anna?
We are good. We have trying to think, about an hour.
All right, perfect.
Over an hour.
Perfect.
They're like, what time do we end today?
Yeah, what time do we end today?
What time is it?
I'm so focused on creating a pizza graphic.
I know.
All right, so let's go ahead and duplicate that. And we're going to hit Control-Command-J, pop that into this group, and then bring that down. So what are the wins for what's going to be on our pizza today?
Let's see. Clever wants anchovies.
All right, we're putting that in.
Pineapple, mushroom and sausage, and margarita.
I love it because margarita is like a whole pizza, right? Like that's
yeah.
Yeah. All right. And the second one will be margarita. Okay, so now I just need to go in here. We need to move this text just a little bit. And then still, because I have everything within the same text field, all I have to do is go in here and scroll down, make my text a little bit smaller, and we're able to fit everything in there. I am not sure if I spelled margarita right.
Let's see. I can't spell either.
I know. There's a reason I decided to go into Photoshop.
I know.
All right. So the next thing I want to do is just see if I can create like a little bit of a drop shadow for these to give them like a little bit more interaction with the image. So we're just going to go ahead and duplicate this solid color fill layer. I'm going to click and drag it to the new layer icon. Here we go. Let's just bring that down. And we're just going to change our color to like a nice gray color like this. Fantastic. So earlier you guys saw how we did a drop shadow with layer effects, but you can also just do it by duplicating your layers just like this and kind of moving them around manually. Then if I want to give this a blur, there we go. All I have to do is click on the layer mask itself, and we're just going to give that a little bit of a blur. It's just going to help it kind of integrate back into the image just a little bit better. And I want to give a little bit of this color here.
Cody said you should know how to spell margarita. You live in Mexico.
I do live in Mexico. Nice, Cody. Is it the same, like a margarita pizza and a margarita drink? Are they spelled the same or are they different?
Yeah, I think so. So I think we added an H in there. So we just need to get rid of the H then.
Really? For a margarita pizza?
I think so. Yeah, we got a couple people saying without the H.
Without the H. All right, we're gonna go by group decision here. I feel like I've seen margarita pizza with an H before.
Me too. It felt right. Now I'm confused. Now I feel like maybe it's not. Whatever. Good enough.
Whatever. Good enough. Exactly. All right. So we're just giving those a little bit of a background, a little bit of a blur, and that's just going to kind of help place them into the scene a little bit. And I'm taking some of the color that's in them. So you can see the little drop shadow type effect from the blue has the blue in there as well. All right. So yeah, just a super fun way, like really nice and quick to, make these text message effects. Obviously, like this could be anything, right? Kind of the main point with today, we want to do this practical compositing, and we want to show you like different options of integrating the objects that we're creating with the backgrounds. So in this case, just a simple like drop shadow with the color. kind of like gives it that frosted glass effect and makes it look like it's actually a part of the image.
Yeah, that looks really good.
Awesome. Do we have any questions or any suggestions for our photo so far?
Nope, just having a debate over how it's spelled, and looks like it is Margh. So you were right. And then Erita.
What? That's how you spell it?
So, MAR.
H-E?
So put GHE.
All right, we're zooming in. Does that look right?
It doesn't look right at all. Margaret. They're saying Google has confirmed this. Maybe it's the font that's throwing us off or something. This is like...
We're all learning together here on this one.
I know. Now I'm like, my dyslexia is like really kicking in. I'm like, oh God, I'm on the spot. Like I'm looking at chat and looking at what you wrote. I'm like, oh. Again, why we do Photoshop, right?
Exactly. Well, we got to this by group decision. So we're keeping it. We're using the power of the group.
Perfect.
Love it. There we go. All righty. Cool. Let's go ahead and move on to our next example. And we've got a shirt mock-up. We're moving a little bit faster than I had originally planned. Maybe it's me and Anna are both just caffeined up. So if you guys have any additional things you'd like to see on this stream, let us know now. We can start pre-planning those.
Yes.
There we go. Let's open this up. I've got a shirt mock-up that I want that we're going to do. And I think this is going to be fun. Originally, I was just going to do one shirt mock-up, but now I think let's see if we can do this, a few of them. I actually have never done this before, so let's see what we can do. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and save out this design. There we go. Let's just save this out as a PSD. I mean, I've done a shirt mock-up. I've never tried to place the same linked object multiple times in the same document, so let's see if we can do it. All right, so we're gonna go to place linked. Boom. So I wanted to include like a mock-up because, you know, we all kind of have to do this stuff, right? Like this is a normal thing that we're, you know, us Photoshop people, they're like, hey, mock this up, make it look realistic. All right, I can. You can do the same linked object multiple times in one image, which is super cool. All right, so this is going to be an absolute trip. Because, let me just check to make sure this works, right? There we go. I'm gonna create some art there, save that out, and it's gonna automatically update there. Okay, cool. So I think the theory works. We're learning something new. You can place the same linked object multiple times into an image. Pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So now what we need to do, let's go ahead and start off. I want to make this look realistic, obviously, right? Like right now, they don't look like they actually fit with the t-shirt. So let's go ahead. I'm going to start by just making this a little bit smaller. Let's reduce our opacity a little bit. All right, we're going to bring this in. And to start off with, I'm going to hit Control-Command-T. This just brings up our general transform. There we go. So we're going to just kind of like grab our corners here by holding Control or Command and putting that into place. All right, let's do the same one for this guy. Control or Command T for our transform. Again, hold Control or Command and you can just kind of grab any of these objects there. Perfect. And just kind of move them until they feel like, you know, they're following a little bit of the same perspective as the shirt or wherever, you know, wherever you're trying to composite it into. There we go. That's looking pretty decent. Let's just bring that up just a little bit more. Perfect. And then we're going to show you how to do displacement and warp and copy shadows and highlights and make these effects look super realistic. There we go. it's looking pretty good. So let's go back to our middle one now. So we've got a couple things that I want to do. The first thing that I want to do is see if I can actually capture some of the highlights and the shadows from this original shirt and then place them over top of this graphic. And that's going to help it make it look like it's actually interacting with the light of the photograph. And that's a really important step. So let's go ahead and turn that off. And I need a way to capture my highlights and shadows. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. You can do by select color range. I'm going to use channels because they're super accurate and they allow for like a lot of gradation and a lot of accuracy. So let's go to click on our black background layer. I'm going to go to my channels. Okay, we're just going to look through our red, green, and blue channels. They all pretty much look the same on the shirt because the shirt is black. But let's go ahead and duplicate our blue channel in this case. And I'm going to hit Control or Command L for our levels. Now, we're just going to make our lights a little bit lighter. There we go. Something like that's looking pretty good. And I want to make my darks a little bit darker. Because again, what we're thinking is like, this is actually going to transfer onto the graphic itself. All right, so like that looks pretty decent. Let's just use that as a selection there. All right, now when we're using channels, we have, if you turn it into a selection, it's always going to select the light areas of the image. So if you want to select the darks, you just have to inverse it. So let's hold Control or Command. That's going to select the light areas. Then I want actually to select the shadows because we want to add shadows over top of our graphics. So we're going to go to Select, and then we're going to go to Inverse. Perfect. Now back here, over top of this, I'm going to grab a Levels Adjustment layer. So let's go to a Levels Adjustment layer. And the cool thing is, because I already had a selection from my channels, it automatically loads that selection into the layer mask of my new adjustment layer. So let's hold Alt or Option and see this is what the layer mask looks like now for my levels adjustment layer. So as I bring my colors down, let's just go to our red channel. There we go, our green channel. Make sure to clip this. And our blue channel. Let's bring this down even more. Fantastic. See how we're starting to see the wrinkles through the shirt. And let's go ahead and bring this opacity back up to 100. And we can see it's looking pretty good. I think we need a little bit more pronounced. So I'm just going to use my levels adjustment layer. We're going to hit Control L to adjust the levels of the layer mask. And you can see as I adjust my layer mask, we're actually bringing in more and more of that wrinkled texture. Perfect. And that's looking pretty cool. So here's the before and after. You can see already like pretty nice effect, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that helps a lot.
It helps so much. Already looks a lot more realistic. Now this is still a smart object, so I can still move this. And you can see anywhere I move this in the shirt, it still has all of the highlights and shadows and things like that on it, which just helps me actually, you know, with this creation phase, make things look a lot better. So they're completely independent of one another. Now let's go ahead and take a look at both of these layers. I'm going to bring that back up to 100. But in this case, you know, the shirt in the middle layer, this has my shirt texture on there. It's beautiful, isn't it? Like it really looks like shirt texture. It's so, so cool. But these others don't have it. I don't want to just duplicate this levels over and over again. So what I'm going to do is unclip this levels adjustment layer. Let's make that invisible. And then you can actually clip an adjustment layer to an entire group, which is super, super cool. So I'm going to just take all of these different graphics and hit Control or Command G to group them all together. And I'm going to turn this levels back on, and we're going to clip this to the whole group. So I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to go to create a clipping mask. Boom. And there we go. Now we have this effect clipped to the entire group. So
nice.
All of these have that effect. You know, in this one, there's not a whole lot of highlight and shadow, but they all have that effect built into them already. Isn't this cool?
Yeah, this is awesome.
Kind of amazing.
Yeah.
So we got the shadows, and that looks pretty good. But next we wanted to get the highlights. So let's go ahead and turn all this off for now. I'm going to go back to my channels. We're going to create another blue copy. And this time I just want to focus on the highlights. So I'm going to bring my shadow level up. There we go. Let's go ahead and bring this. There we go. Something like that. I don't need so much highlights, but something like that is at least going to give me some highlights. Let's go ahead and give it a little bit more there. Okay, that looks good across all 3 shirts. So let's hit OK. Now, keep in mind, when I make this channel into a selection, it's going to select the light parts. And in this case, that's actually what we want because I want to select the highlights. So let's hold Control or Command, click on that blue copy, which selects the lights. We're going to go back to our layers. We're going to turn everything back on again. And I'm going to make another levels adjustment layer and clip this. And this time, this is going to be my highlight. So let's go ahead and start naming things. It's getting a little bit confusing. Shadows, and this is our highlights. Fantastic. So now with the highlights, I'm going to take my white point and we're going to start bringing this in just a little bit. And as you can see, as I do it with just my RGB, that's looking good, but I want to go through my each individual color channels and I want to work with those individually. So let's just move them each in. There we go. And I'm able to get like a nice color balance with my graphics intact as well. So here we have our highlights, nice and subtle, but you'll see it more like on this one. All right, if you wanted even stronger of an effect, let's just go ahead and bring that in. There we go. So now we have our highlights. This one didn't have much on it here, just a real subtle because there's not a lot of movement and not a lot of highlight and shadow on that shirt to begin with. There we go. But these other ones are looking really good, nice, and accurate. So I can just turn these off and then back on, and you can see like already huge, huge difference.
Yeah, that middle one looks so good.
The middle one looks really good, and we are still not done. We still have a lot to do with this. So this middle one, the first thing I want to do is apply just a tiny bit of a blur to this because the edge is like super, super sharp. So we're just going to go to Filter, Blur, and I'm going to go to Gaussian Blur. There we go. And it's so cool. Look, even if I blur this, like see how the texture of the shirt is over top of that? It still looks interesting and cool. There we go. So we're just going to blur that just a little bit so our edge is a little bit more realistic. And then I can actually take the smart filters from one layer and copy them onto my other layers. So I'm going to hold Alt or Option and click and drag this smart filter from this one onto this other guy. And now I have the Gaussian blur, the same exact amount of Gaussian blur on all 3 of the different shirts.
Nice.
All right. Cool, cool, cool. So the next thing we need to do is, let's just double click. I'm going to call this, let's call it background. Fantastic. The next thing I want to do is add a little bit of like variation, right? It still just looks like a square plopped on top of a shirt. It's not interacting with any of the shadows and the highlights and things like that. So we need to do that. So we're going to go ahead and click on our layer. Let me just make a selection here so I can go select that area, and we're going to go to Filter and then down tier to Liquify. There we go. Let's go ahead and zoom in. And now here with my Liquify, I'm going to just say use my background layer. So I want to be able to actually see what the background looks like. You can choose that to be behind. You can choose it to do a blend. You can do all these kinds of things. But now I'm actually going to be affecting this layer. I just want to grab my forward warp tool and I can start pushing these areas around with this tool. All right, let's go ahead and bring our pressure down, bring our density down a little bit too. There we go. And you see as I push and pull this around, I can see the original texture of the shirt through this. There we go.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Isn't this cool?
Yeah.
So I'm able to see what I'm doing as I'm actually like pushing and pulling these textures around this image to make them look like they're fitting with the, there we go. We want to do this inside too, because we don't want it to be perfect. And then we're doing the same thing here. You know, this should all be a little bit like wavy, right? It's not, we don't want it to look all perfect and square, even if you don't have like a ton of visible like little wrinkles and dips up here. You still want it to look like it's got some interaction with the shirt itself. All right. I think that's looking pretty good.
Yeah, that looks great.
All right, so let's go to our reconstruct option. I'm going to click on this reconstruct so we can see this like before and after. If I take this and scroll it back down versus up, so you guys can see just that kind of like before and after. You don't have to go super crazy with it, but just a little bit of interaction between the shirt and the graphic helps out a lot. Let's hit OK there. And there we can see it adjusted in real time. And we have our highlights and our shadows over top of that as well. So once we bring in all of those things together, we see that our graphic is really starting to take shape. I'm just going to bring my saturation down just a tiny bit. There we go, on all of them. Fantastic. And we can see it's looking a lot more realistic. Here in our highlights, I'm just going to grab our reds. I'm just going to put a little bit more reds in the highlights. Fantastic.
Nice.
All right. Let's go ahead and do the same thing here. So again, we have this layer. Let's go to filter. We'll go down to our liquify. Perfect. Now we're focusing on this one here on the left. All right. And again, I would just want to choose our background, and we're just going to blend this together again.
Question from the chat.
Yeah.
Annika says, has Aaron or Anna ever done scripting in Photoshop? I haven't. I'm not even sure what that is.
I've never done scripting either. I'm not sure what it is either.
Okay, good. I was like,
no.
Let us know, Annika, what do you mean by scripting?
Yeah, I don't, is that, I think like some, I'm not even going to guess. I'm assuming it's like something to do with like code or like making your own. I don't know. Yeah, what is scripting? You've stumped us.
Yeah. And then I'm taking note of any questions anyone has that we can do at the end for a little bit of a bigger workflow or process if we have some extra time.
Yeah, if we've got the time. We're moving a little bit faster. I was like, oh, I'm going to prepare 5 examples. We'll probably get through 3. I'm going to prepare a couple extras just in case, but we are moving right along. I'm happy to cover pretty much anything.
Yeah, let us know in the chat if there's anything you want us to go over. Jesus, I got your question about the blurring, so I took note of that. Anyone else, if you have bigger things for us to go over towards the end, I will take note, and then Aaron will go through them towards the end of the show. Awesome. And looks like Annika said, yes, make your own code to do stuff for you. Basically like droplets, but writing the essentially a simpler, like writing code.
Writing code.
Nope, that's way over my head.
Way over my head too. I'm with you there. I think it takes a very special mind to write code. And yeah, I've played around with HTML and CSS a little bit, but that's about as deep as I've gone.
Yep. Same. I know, like I'll leave that to the experts at Photoshop. Let Adobe Sensei do the magic for me. I don't need to write the code.
Exactly. Like every time I try, like I'm a very visual person. I grew up drawing and painting, and I've just kind of always been like visual language has always been like my go-to. And every now and then I try to do some other type of like art, and I'd love to do it, but I find that like the visual field just comes so much more naturally to me. Like, yeah, I wanted to be a songwriter for a little bit, and I was like writing songs, and I was like, whoa, I'm like so bad at this. Like, it's way harder than I thought it was. And I realized like I've been practicing almost my entire life in the visual language, and to switch to something else, not to say it's impossible, but it was just a bigger leap for me than I thought it was going to be.
Yep.
Silly me for thinking that writing songs was going to be easy. Like millions and millions of people tried it, and obviously it's very difficult. But
yeah,
same thing with code. I'm not that good at it.
Yep. I totally know the feeling. I'm the same exact way, visual person, and can create anything with my eyes. And then when it turns into anything else, or as we saw earlier, spelling or measurements, anything related to math, like, I mean, even with our house renovation, I'm like, I can see what I want. I can hold the wood up. I can be like, okay, it's approximately this size. And then James is like, well, what's the measurement? I'm like, I don't know. I can look at a tape measure, but then I can't add them together.
Exactly.
So, stick to what you know, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way. And I think it's just a good lesson in life, because like I think it can be easy sometimes to be like, oh, I'm not so good at this. And then kind of get down on yourself. But I think everyone is going to be really good at something, like just naturally, like whatever you spent your childhood doing, like whatever comes easy to you. And I think Anna and I are really good examples of like, we are like comfortable with what we're good in, and have been able to like build a life and a career around those things, and be horrible at almost everything else. In my case, anyway. I can't speak for you, but
no, it's true.
So yeah, just like a little bit of a, shining a little bit of a light, just in case everyone's like, where do I fit into all this? And it's like, you don't have to be good at everything. You can be good at just like one thing, and that's totally enough.
Yep.
Like, like the Beatles were really good at writing songs. Were they good at like baking cakes? I don't know. No one knows. No one really cares. It doesn't really matter. Like, they were good at their one thing, and that's enough.
So true.
All righty. So here we have our mock-ups, and I think we're looking pretty good. Anna, is there anything else that you would suggest?
I think they're looking really good. I guess my only question would be, like, these look awesome, but what if your image, you didn't want it to look as like kind of vintagey? These almost look like a vintage tee. What if it was like a much brighter thing?
Definitely. So I guess a part of this is like we brought in a lot of these like shadow colors from the shirt. So one thing that we could do is just kind of like lower the opacity of that a little bit, and that would bring it in. In this case, I think it kind of needs a little bit of a darker effect just to look like more realistic, but you could definitely bring that in. But that brings in a good point, because earlier, we did test this out. This is using the same smart object in a few different places. So let's go ahead back to our early examples with our wall art here. Let's go ahead and open this up, because if you guys remember, we used the same place linked option as before. There we go. So I'm just going to put this wall art here inside of this document here, and then check this out. This is going to be so cool. All right, so all I have to do now is save this wall art, and it's going to automatically update on all the shirts. Nice. There we go. Check that out. So we've updated it. You guys can see, oh, brought in the wrong one. It still has all of the highlights and shadows that make this look realistic. It still has all this nice texture work on it. And it also has all the like curves and waves and things like that of the shirt as well. So yeah, it just kind of like automatically fits into this design. in the after. I think this middle one is looking the best, mostly based on the highlights and shadows. I think they're just kind of like showing up really well here.
Yeah, that looks really good. Here's a question.
Yes.
So what would happen if you put something into the linked object that wasn't a square, if it was a PNG of something?
Oh, that's a great question. All right, so let's go ahead and open that up because we have that from our Hello Summer example, right? We have our, there we go. This is just JPEGs, but I can delete the background easy enough. All right, so let's go ahead and put that in there and close this one out. All right. So let's go ahead and bring this a little bit larger. Control Command T, scale this up a little bit. Perfect. And then what I want to do is just extract this black color. And I'm just going to do that with channels again. So I'm going to hold Control Command, just click on any one of our color channels because it's black and white. So that selects out the white part. We got to remember that. So I'm going to go to Select and then down to Inverse. Okay, and we're going to go to Edit and then down to Fill. And I'm going to fill this with white. There we go. And let's just get rid of the background so we don't have any background here. Oh, I meant to fill that with white on a new layer, by the way. There we go. There we go. So let's go ahead and get rid of all this other stuff. So we have just this Hello Summer. And then because it selected other stuff around there too, I'm just going to need to make a selection here and then convert it and then delete it. All right, so let's check this out. So we have just this Hello Summer clear background. So just hit save. It's going to go boop, bop, beep. And here we have our Hello Summer. And it is now automatically converted into these guys.
Nice.
Now, it worked really well. The shadow color here, because I brought in, well, I just need to rebalance my colors here. Here we go. Perfect. Yeah. So there we have.
It does look like it picked up the liquefying that you did too. On the, I think, like on the S a little, you can kind of see it.
Yes. Yeah, it should all be there because that's all a part of the, yeah, you can see it here, I think, really well with this S. So that is all a part of, hey, look at this. We're creating a whole ad campaign for the Jersey Shore.
It's perfect.
We've got our Hello Summer t-shirts. We've got our Hello Summer graphics. Let's just open. Here we go. Fantastic. Look at this. We're the entire marketing team for Jersey Board of Tourism.
We should call them up.
Yeah, get your t-shirts, get your banners, get your billboards. Hello Summer everywhere.
We have a new job.
Yeah, self-promoted here. Awesome. So you can see it's really easy to switch this stuff up, going from all types of stuff. Obviously, you could even do something like this, you know, save this out, and you would just like get all the other stuff around it as well. So there's really like one of my favorite workflows in Photoshop because it allows for like so much creativity and so much change to happen dynamically. And again, because you can change your design, like I could place this small design here, we could place that linked into this graphic as well. So let's say we were deciding on the slogan for the Jersey Shore Board of Tourism. I could change this out in just one document and it would automatically change in every single composite that I put it into. So we could see like, how does it look like in this use case or versus that use case? You could just make those changes and it would ripple across the entire thing. That's
really nice. That's great if you have multiple different items of merchandise, like if you had a coffee mug and a t-shirt and a poster and a banner, blah, 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 and it just changes on everything.
Yes, yeah. So you don't have to redo your compositing and color matching and liquefy every single time. You can just kind of ripple across, which is super, super helpful.
So nice.
Cool. Did we have any questions for these examples?
I don't think so. I have saved a few questions for whenever you're done and ready for some other things, but nothing based specifically on these.
All right, cool. Let's go ahead and close them out. Fantastic. You guys are doing awesome. Thanks for joining us in the chat, and let us know. We're on our fifth and final example for today. So
yes, and we have the artist spotlight in 9 minutes, which I almost totally forgot about. So that would be good. And we can do that for a little bit too, while you in between working on this and finishing up some other things.
Perfect. So I found this, like, here's just another, like, I thought kind of fun example. Let's say you're designing like a children's nursery or something like that. I found this like really nice Adobe Stock graphic, and then here's a photograph of that actually has a little whale in it too. So I was like, oh, cool. We're doing like a kid's bedroom, and it's going to be like whale and under the ocean theme. So I want to put this whale in. Let's just click and drag that in there. And I want to make it look realistic. I want it to actually look like it's on the wall back there. So Control-Command-T, let's just go ahead and scale this down a little bit and hit enter. And there we go. We're going to lower the opacity. And then I just want to figure out about where we want to put this in place. Fantastic. Something like that looks kind of fun. I just love all this like mock-up stuff that you can do in Photoshop, because I feel like I normally think about Photoshop and I'm like, cool, fantasy composites. Let's create these like crazy fun images. And I love that stuff. But Photoshop is like a very practical tool as well when you use it like in these ways. Alrighty. So I'm going to go ahead and bring our opacity up, and then I'm going to see if I can color match the this like yellow here to the background here that we have. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. We're going to start off by using just a levels adjustment layer. So I'm going to grab our levels. Okay, let's go ahead and clip that. And then we're just going to go start off with our blue channel. There we go. And I'm just adjusting my highlights here just a little bit to try to get like a little bit better of a match. I can still cut the whale out. That's not a problem at all. But I just want like a little bit better of a match before I do. And a lot of this is, you know, when we're bringing these elements together, like a lot of what makes this stuff like look realistic or not is how good of a job we do with our color matching. All right, so that actually looks okay on like the background. It's a little bit off, it's a little bit blue, but it's messed with our whale a little bit. So let's go ahead and I'm just gonna cut out this whale super quick. Very easy to do. I'm just gonna grab my magic wand tool, or maybe we can use our object select tool. Let's grab our new object select tool. Just need to hover over this area. All right, and click on it. There we go. Wow, this works so incredibly well. So I just click on my layer mask, and that's literally it.
Man, so good.
I'm like blown away. That object select tool is super, super cool. All right, so we have like a little whale graphic decal. Now, one thing that I want to do is I want to take this lighter color here from the whale, and I want to make that transparent. So I just want this like the darker areas of the whale to show up, but this I want it to kind of be see-through a little bit. Okay, so for that we're going to use channels as well. So let's go to our red channel, green channel, blue channel. I'm looking for the most amount of contrast, so that's going to be here in my blue channel. Let's hit Control-Command-L for our levels, make our darks a little bit darker and our lights a little bit lighter. There we go. And then I can Control-click to turn this into a selection. And then back here on my layer mask, when I hit Control-Command-H, I can actually just, I can fill that with black on my layer mask. So now this is what the layer mask looks like. Isn't that cool?
That's awesome.
So it's like a stencil that's like put onto the wall, but like this light color here is now the same color as the wall itself.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Super, super cool. And then we can go through our levels and just do a little bit of color balance. And then this will just take 2 seconds, and then we'll be ready for our artist spotlight.
Sweet. I actually learned how to layer mask using channels from one of your tutorials way back in the day. And I use it all the time because it like helps so much when you have things that you can't just do select subject or object selection and you have the high contrast. And even in this instance, it's like a game changer tool.
It's so nice. And channels to give you like really accurate selections as well. So if you have like tricky hair cutouts or things like this, where I wanted to like, let's look at that layer mask, right? Like how else would you get a layer mask that's this detailed? I can't think of another way. Yes. Yeah, so it just creates these like really seamless compositions, really quick and easy. We're almost there. I just need to do a little bit with the light and the color, but I think I'm ready for the artist spotlight if you are.
We still have a countdown of 3 minutes and 40 seconds.
Perfect.
But we're getting there.
We're getting there.
We could do it a little early, but I think we'll stick to the time frame. So go ahead and work on the lighting here, and then I'll let you know when it's time.
Perfect. So one thing I want to do is I need to give the whale just a little bit of a blur. You guys can see like this edge looks like really, really crisp. And oftentimes in those cases, it's not going to look super realistic. So I want to make this a smart object. We're going to right click and I'm going to go to convert to smart object. We're going to go to filter, blur, and just a Gaussian blur. And we can just go super subtle, you know, like 0.4 pixels, like maybe even less, 0.3 pixels. You don't even have to like really see the blur. You just want to get rid of, let's just turn that off and on so you can see this edge. You want to get rid of, where's the eyeball there? You want to get rid of where it looks like it's kind of like a too sharp of an edge. Because oftentimes Photoshop will just give you an edge that is too sharp for an actual photo. All right, and the next thing I want to do is bring a little bit of the light of the background over top the whale. So I'm going to double click here on my layer. We're going to use our blend if, and I'm going to say don't be visible where the underlying layer is lighter. And you can see I've got my slider control here. Hold Alt or Option to grab your slider, but just like a little bit of, there we go, just like a tiny, tiny bit of that will help us to make like the light of the room kind of interact with the whale itself.
Nice.
Go. Cool. And then of course you can still move the whale and put it wherever you want. You can see it's even semi-transparent back in these areas. There we go. But I'm looking pretty happy with that. Is that in general? Let's just see. Maybe I'll make it a little bit lighter towards the front. All right, just grab my gradient tool and kind of gradient that away so it looks like it's kind of interacting with the highlights that are coming in from the left side of the window there. All right, pretty cool. And then maybe just change the color to make the blues like a little bit more pronounced. Try to kind of match the blues that are already in this scene a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
That's so nice.
I'm pretty happy with this. And of course you could like create your whole, you know, create a whole scene there. And then one thing that I've done before, just like a fun idea, is you can take, once you create something like this, you can actually take this idea and then if you have like a projector for movies, or if your friend has a projector, you don't even need to buy one, usually just ask around. You can actually set up a projector and then project this image onto the wall and then use that and then like stencil or paint or draw over top of the projector. So it's like a really cool DIY project where you can just get these stencils on the wall. And with doing that, you'll have like a really fun mix between like this digital, but then if you hand paint it, you'll have the hand painted effect as well. And you don't have to be like the most amazing hand painted artist out there because you're kind of like tracing it on the wall, but you still get the overall effect.
I love that idea. I'm definitely going to have to do that.
I've done it before. I did a mural for Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak.
Nice. That's so awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, really, really fun technique. And I've seen a lot with like projection mapping and people putting things on buildings and then tracing over them for like wall murals. It's a really fun technique. Just another great like little Photoshop hack.
Yes, such a good idea. Definitely gonna do that. So
Nice.
cool. All right. Well, it is time for Artist Spotlight. So, Aaron, if you want to go ahead and bring that up, then we can
Yes.
discuss.
Let's bring it up. Artist Spotlight. Here we go.
All right. So, Sharon Coker, I saw you in the chat. Congratulations. You are our artist that we are highlighting today. And I already took a look at your Instagram. You have absolutely gorgeous work. I love everything that you've created here. So we're just going to kind of go through it. And Aaron, feel free to click on anything that really draws your attention, and we'll just kind of talk about it and go through Sharon's work.
Yeah, Sharon, I like, first of all, off the bat, I really like the like very kind of like raw and real feeling that I get from your images. It doesn't look like super staged or fake, or I struggle with that with my own work. Like sometimes I'm doing photographs and I'm just like, I'll look at it later. I'm like, yep, it looks like a person sitting in a studio posing for a photograph, you know?
Yeah.
Your work doesn't, it kind of transcends that a little bit. You have more of like a natural, realistic feeling to your work. And it's really, really powerful, really, really cool. Like it doesn't look like people are posing, you know?
Yeah. And I love that her work is very like natural and not overly edited too. We see a lot of times with portrait photography, a lot of heavy retouching. And it's nice that you can see the person's natural skin imperfections, even though that they're not imperfections. And they're not edited out. It looks really nice. And it gives this sense of just something fresh and different, and feels very good naturally to our instincts.
Yeah, I agree. And you've done a really good job like capturing the people as well. Like I feel like I am getting a little bit of this person's personality. Like you know, and that's a very difficult thing to do in photography. But I think you're, you know, absolutely nailing it. Like I feel like I'm getting to know these people as I see them. And also your composition, like this is a beautifully composed piece here. And it looks like there might be some other, I don't know if I can click on it here. Oh, look at this. So this was for, some client work. So all part of a series. Absolutely stunning. Your eye for composition is fantastic. All of these images are beautifully composed. The lighting is stunning, flawless, and I want to go stay at this place now.
I agree. I know she has such good work. The compositions are amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
I love the sense of movement in a lot of her pieces too. And even like when I noticed a couple times with the double exposure.
Oh yes, let's find one of those. There was just one that
right there.
Yes.
That, and then go back one.
This one here
right
too.
There, yeah. That's so
stunning.
Cool.
I'd be interested to know if you did this in camera or if this was a Photoshop effect.
Yeah, let us know, Sharon, if you're still in the chat.
Oh, what? Look, it says right here, this double exposure was done in camera.
Oh, wow. Oh my God. Amazing. I love when that accidentally happens. It's like, oh, so good.
Wow. Absolutely stunning work. Thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing your images with us today. Beautiful, beautiful work. Absolutely love it.
Thank you, Sharon. And
wow, I feel inspired. I'm like, oh, I want to change up my photography. I want to shoot like this now.
I know, it's so good.
Not that I can, I just want to.
I know, me too. I'm going to definitely give you a follow, Sharon. This is beautiful work.
Yeah, just need Sharon to come and guide my hand and my mind. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Here we go. Boom.
Oh, gotta follow.
We're officially friends.
2
Sharon.
follows. There you go.
Yes.
I wonder if she's still here. Oh, there she is. Hi, Sharon. Love your work. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. Ooh, that one's amazing.
Stunning. Absolutely stunning. Yeah, it just seems like everyone's like really comfortable and having a good time with these photos too. You know, they don't seem like awkward or too posed, which I find that it's really difficult to make people like natural in photographs.
Totally. I know.
Cool.
Gorgeous.
Looking good. Looking good. Wow. Yeah, I think we're both blown away. Nice job, Sharon.
And very inspired. So thank you so much for sharing. And anyone else who wants to submit your own portfolio or a friend's, you'll see in the chat, there's a little tab that says Artist Spotlight, and you can submit right there. Cody may also put the link in here for you to submit, and you never know, you may be seeing your showed live and reviewed by one of us. So yeah, thank you so much, Sharon. And we'll go back into Photoshop.
Cool. Well, we are just about done with this image. I think it's looking really, really nice. It's got a good feel to it. I think our darks could be like a little bit darker. So let's just make those just a tiny bit darker there. But yeah, we've got like a nice realistic like little wall decal that we can kind of put on things, and just like a fun little way to do a transfer there. I'm pretty happy with this overall, and I'm open to any suggestions for topics from our audience.
Yeah, let us know if you have any questions, and we can go into some other ideas. A few things that I will pull up here. People, let's see. All right. So one of the things Jesus was asking about is if you could explain the different types of blur. He said, I always see people use Gausian blur. Maybe we could walk through some of the different types of blur and what they do.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go ahead and bring up our earlier example on the Hello Summer, where we did that, where we did the blur. And we can show you the different types of blur there. And I'm pretty sure I made it a smart object. So look at this. We can turn that blur off or on at any time. Boom, smart objects for the win. So there we go. There's our Gaussian blur. So a Gaussian blur is like a mathematically random blur. Basically, it's a really great. So when it says Gaussian, that's like the formula that it uses to create the blur. It's a very good, like, it takes points and then kind of scatters them around. So you just have like a very good, very even blur. It doesn't always look very like photographic or very like, you know, like it was produced from a lens. It looks a lot more like a digital type of blur. So let's go ahead and make that invisible, and we can apply different blurs on top of this. I'm just going to get rid of this Hello Summer for now. There we go. And we can apply our different blurs. So filter, blur, we have like average, we'll just kind of take all of the colors. There we go, and average them together to choose like one color that's the average of all those blurs. Blur and blur more. Blur just like blurs it a little bit without really any control. Blur more blurs it a little bit more without any control. Box blur is actually a shape blur, but this will blur in a box. And actually, I really like box blur. It's a very quick blur in terms of processing on the computer, but it gives you more definition than a standard Gaussian blur. So actually, I find that box blur, if you want to create something that looks photographic, it actually does work really well as like you can see, like the edges are still relatively well defined. Let's just show you that between the box blur and the Gaussian blur. So the box blur has these defined edges. If I turn that off and then the Gaussian blur, you can see the Gaussian blur just kind of like blurs it all together again. So the box blur, because it does retain edges and does retain a little bit of shape, can be more photographic because that's kind of how cameras work too. Like when you have like out of focus areas in the background, you can still see like edges and things like that. It doesn't look like super soft. So if you're going for more photorealistic, box blur can be really nice. All right, let's go to our other blurs here. We have motion blur, which just you can do like left or right. Let's see a little preview there. There we go. I use this for like motion, like when I want to make something look like it's actually moving through some space. There we go. Filter, blur. We have our radial blur, which just kind of like blurs around in a circle. And then oftentimes, there we go, bring our amount up. You can spin this around and you can zoom it. So spinning, I'll put on like, you can see it just did like a massive spin based over there. I'll use a radial blur if I want to have like a picture of a car and I want to make the car look like it's moving, you can put the radial blur on the wheels of the car. And then you have another option here, which is zoom. And I actually use this for creating like light rays in a photograph. So you can see that's an interesting zoom effect. I'll show you that effect real quick here because it's kind of fun. All right, so let's just say, I mean, this is a very overcast day, right? So would there actually be any light rays here? No, no way. This is, you know, this is not the scene that would actually need light rays. You have to have a backlit light source for light rays. But I'm going to add them in here just because we want to show you this, but just keep in mind that this is not going to be photorealistic. Not going to look real. So what I just did, and I know it's totally random, I just created a new layer and just put a bunch of blobs of white paint on that new layer. And then we're going to go to filter, blur, and then we're going to go to our radial blur. Let's just put this in the top left corner, and then you can see it even looks like light rays already.
Yeah.
Like this little tip here. And then we're going to set this to zoom, and then I'm going to hit OK. There we go. We have our light rays. You can do that one more time. I'm going to go to filter, radial blur. It's just going to do the same thing. And then, you know, it has this nice definition in it too, because you can see I use like a hard edge brush. So like light rays would actually do that. And then I'm going to hit Control-Command-T, to just like stretch this out and make it a little bit bigger. And then you got light rays, you know, kind of coming through your image. If you wanted more of a softer effect, you could change this from normal to like soft light, and it would kind of blend in. There we go. So that's so our cool. Like, yeah, little simple, you know, effect that we use for light rays. Again, this image doesn't have a light source that would necessarily call for it. All right, let's open this up. Filter, blur, smart blur. This tries to do a good job like keeping edges. So like if you try to do a smart blur with like people, for instance. There we go. Filter, blur, smart blur. There we go. You can see it's kind of blurring like inside of the lines. Let's go to that guy's face. Bring up our radius a little bit. We just made it a smart object, so we can turn this off and on. So it tries to keep edges intact. So this can be like a real, I don't use it for retouching, but some people do, because it's just kind of like a real cheap way to like blur skin. There we go. You can see it keeps edges intact.
Yeah, wow.
But it also does all this funky stuff that doesn't look photographic at all. Maybe for like some fine art effects or like, you know, that sort of thing. So it's much different from a Gaussian blur because it keeps the edges intact, but just don't wind up using it that much. And then surface blur is very similar to the smart blur here. Let's just hit OK. It just keeps your edges intact. It's a little bit more subtle than the smart blur. There we go. And then actually some of my favorite blurs are in the blur gallery. Let's just turn surface blur back off. So this is super cool here. Let's just I'm going to create a new layer. Make it stand visible. There we go. Let's go to filter, blur, and then blur gallery. Here we have field blur, which is one of my favorite blurs. This is super cool for like blending objects together. So with the field blur, you can create one point and like say, oh, I want it to be super blurry over here. But then I can click on my subjects and I can say, make it not blurry over here. So I can have something kind of like blur out, which can be really interesting for all types of different effects. And you can create as many blur points if you want. Like I can click down here and I can say, make it blurry down there as well. So we kind of have like no blur where our subjects are, and then it gets blurry in other places. And if I'm trying to do like a complex composite that actually has like depth of field in it as well, where subjects will go out of focus the further they get from the camera, you can create a bunch of these little blur points here and then kind of match your composite from one area to another. I'll also do this very, very subtly. Let's just delete that point there. Like if I want to do just like a really subtle draw of attention to my subjects, right? Like let's just do that here, and then we'll make this one nice and subtle here. Put a little bit of film. There's an option to put grain in here. I always recommend doing that. It makes it look much more realistic. And I'll do this super subtle. Let's just hit enter there, so you guys can see the before and after that. this could be just really nice to, let's just full screen that. It could be really nice to draw some attention to your subject. So there's the before and the after. I'm just kind of blurring away the part that is not essential, like her foot and everything. This is not going to be photographically accurate because it's not taking depth into account. But if you do it subtle, your eye kind of doesn't really register that it's not photographically accurate. Can you everyone see that, by the way? That blur effect that's happening down there?
Yeah, that's really awesome.
It's just a fun little way, especially with the noise added to it. It looks a lot more realistic when you put the noise on there.
Definitely.
But it's just a real simple, fun way to draw more attention to your subject. Like if you just got a bunch of stuff down there that you don't want people to see, that's a really good way to do it. Next, we have our blur gallery. The iris blur is like the field blur, but you just control it in one point. So I just usually use the field blur instead. The tilt shift is actually incredibly useful. Check this out. You can create like a fake tilt shift effect. And this is actually here. Let's show you this because we actually did cut out our subjects from the background, right? So let's go ahead and duplicate this from the background. And then we're going to go to filter, blur gallery, and tilt shift. Thanks for this question, by the way. I feel like we're going through a lot of really cool blurs.
Yeah, like, this is super useful.
Oh, we could have done this in the body of the tutorial too. There we go. So let's go to this super blur. There we go in the background. I'm going to hit enter. Now we're running into the same issue that we did before with our subjects are cut out from the background. So I just need to do this on this layer. But just like we saw earlier, that you can take a there we go, filter, blur gallery, tilt shift, make sure we add a bunch of grain to it so it looks realistic. All right, and obviously we don't want that much blur because it doesn't look that real. Pretty cool. So basically I'm using the tilt shift effect. I'm making where my subject feet are perfectly in focus. Okay, and then because the subjects are cut out from the background is going to blur. So let's just take a look at this before and the after here real quick. So see, like the background is getting a lot more blur behind our subjects. Mm-hmm. So we're like recreating depth of field in a bit of a way, while keeping our subjects in focus because they're actually cut out on a layer that's in front of that. So that's kind of a fake tilt shift effect. But if you want to bring some more attention to your subjects, it's a really good way to do it.
Yeah.
All right. And what else blurs do we have? Path blur just lets you blur on a path. I've used this for like cars that are in motion. If I need to like blur like in a direction, like if the road is going in a certain way, you can like blur the road to go in that direction. And it's, going to have like a realistic, like multi-directional blur to it. A little bit more complicated. I don't use it that much. And then we'll go to our spin blur, which is basically like a radial blur that has a lot more control. So I can kind of put this wherever I want, and it's going to do a spin blur. So if you are thinking to blur some like wheels or tires or something like that, this would be a better way to do it. And you can still like manipulate this to make it all kinds of ways.
Yes, so cool.
Yeah.
I've never used the path blur, but now I'll have to play around with that because that's a great idea for blurring like curvy roads.
It is, yeah, it totally works really well. And yeah, if you just have some, like, you want to create some interesting motion, you can do that here. Hey, look, it looks like they're running. There we go. Perfect. That's my Photoshop trick for the day. How to make people look like they're the road runner, but you know how in Looney Tunes, their feet all look like a blur like that?
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. So that's the majority of blurs. Hope that helped out. There's some pretty cool stuff we went over.
Yeah, that was really great. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And Jesus, hopefully you're still here. So you got some tips on blur. If not, you can always watch the replay. And then let me see. We have like less than 10 minutes. We have like 6 minutes left. And someone asked about tips for mocking up subjects with a light source behind them, like such as fabric or a lampshade.
Oh, okay. Mocking up subjects with the light behind them.
I don't know if we have time for that, but
like cutting them out of their background.
I don't know about cutting them out, but I think it was when you were working on the t-shirts, and in reference to if you were putting like a piece of art onto a subject, your mock-up actually had light coming from it. So if your mock-up was a lampshade and you're putting a graphic on the lampshade.
Oh, that's a really interesting question. All right, let's just grab a lampshade real quick. What do you say?
Yeah.
All right, we want to make it look like the lamp is actually on. There we go. Let's just download a preview for this. This is my general workflow in Photoshop. It's just go to Adobe Stock, find something that looks good, and pop the preview on there. All righty, fantastic. So here we go. We've got let's go ahead and just minimize this real quick. Fantastic. So let's go ahead and do the same thing. So let's pop the Hello Summer on there. So I'm going to go to File and then Place Linked. There we go. We just want to place that in there. F4 full screen. So let's go ahead and hit Control-Command-T to transform that. Okay. Fantastic. All right. So in this case, what I would wind up doing is whatever is on here is going to obscure the light a little bit, right? Like that's, if it's going to be a graphic on a lampshade. So I'm just going to grab a new layer and put it on top of there. And then I'm going to grab excuse me.
Bless you.
I'm going to grab a color from my image here. Let's just grab this like dark color, and I'm going to put that over top of this because we want it to look like it's actually obscuring the light, right? So it's got to be dark. Light color wouldn't really make sense, wouldn't really work. And then we want to take this this shade, the actual texture of the shade, and put it on top of that too. So a really cool way to take the texture from a layer, I'm actually just going to duplicate the background layer, pop that up to the top. We're going to go to Image, Adjustments, and then down to Desaturate. There we go. And I'm going to right click, and then we're going to just turn this into a smart object. Convert to smart object. I'm going to set this from normal to like let's just go to a hard light for now. So basically what we're doing is I'm taking the original texture and I'm going to put it over top of this text that I just made. But I need to use a high pass filter, which is going to extract the texture of it. So you can use this for sharpening, but it also works really well for extracting texture. So I'm going to go to Filter, Other, and over to here to High Pass. There we go. And as I just crank this up, let's hit OK. And then I would just want to pop this on top of the Hello Summer. So you guys can see, let's just zoom in here a little bit. You can see it has the texture of the lampshade on top of it. It's similar to what we did with the, here we go, with the t-shirts. And as you can see, as I kind of change the high pass amount, it changes the filter amount there. You could even duplicate that if you wanted for a little bit more of an effect. But this is going to make it look like it's actually around there. Now, the last thing that I would do is I would make some light kind of like coming around the text a little bit. I know we're working with a low quality small example here, but if you can make it work like this, you can make it work big too. So I'm going to just select the Hello Summer text. Okay. And I want the light to kind of like come in from the outside a little bit, right? So I'm going to go to Select, and we're going to go to Modify, and I'm going to just expand this by, let's just say like 4 pixels and hit OK. Okay, so we're expanding this by 4 pixels, and then let's just grab this nice highlight color, okay? And then I'm going to fill this with our foreground color. There we go. So I'm filling this selection with the foreground color, and then keep in mind that it's expanded, right? It's expanded from the original summer. So now I'm going to select my Hello Summer again, and I'm going to delete it out of there. Right, so I have basically like a stroke, right? Like this is what I have like on a new layer. It's kind of like a stroke. But now check this out. This is kind of cool. I'm going to turn this into a smart object and then give it a blur. So we're going to go filter, blur, and then Gaussian blur. It's going to blur it just a little bit. Okay. And as you can see, part of this is actually going to cover up my text, right? But it's showing up. All right. It's showing up outside of my text. So if I pop this and I clip this again, check it out. Now I have the glow coming around the edges for that text.
Amazing. I'm so sad to cut you off on this because this is really interesting and so cool the way you use the texture. But thank you everyone for watching today. Sorry to cut this off. You know, you can always watch Aaron on all of his Phlearn tutorials. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks so much.